And these are videos that I put together. These are DVDs, 2 hour long. Depends on how you buy them. If you buy one, it's $12 each. If you buy the full set, which is 10, it's not $120. It's $100 for 10 of these. $10 each. It might be even less. Just email me and I'll give you a quote and the listing. Okay then, now, so that means the economics of the whole situation of your life changes radically for the better when you adopt this way of eating. And that will become more and more a significant factor, because this problem with money is getting worse. In other words, the purchasing power of the dollar is eroding every week. And when I said that the price of two people eating, how much they paid to eat at home in 2009, that was $343.70. Then this is 2 years later. It's probably at least 20% higher than that today, because the purchasing power of the dollar has declined. I mean, one of the indicators of the dollar's strength or weakness is called the DXY. It's an index on the stock market, and it's gone from 120 in the beginning of 2009, I think it was, maybe the beginning of 2010, to today it's at 74. That's a significant decline, and it's not stopping. So you can imagine that today the average two-person household is paying probably more like $440 a month for their food, not including eating out. In fact, for a lot of people, eating out is probably, well, no, that's not actually true, because you can actually, if you're eating the standard American diet, with these food chains, they're cheap. There's no question about it. But the reason they're cheap is because they're subsidized. The meat industry is subsidized in America. I mean, what's his name? John Robbins. He brought out a book called Diet for a New America. This came out around about 1992, around there. And in there, he had a fact sheet, and one of the facts that he had done in his research revealed that in 93, that if the true costs of producing beef were factored into its price, meaning with no subsidies, then the price of a pound of beef then would be $45 a pound. So you can imagine what it is now. 9 years, this is 93, 20 years later almost. And the reason it's subsidized is because there's a deliberate policy to make the American people meat and potato eaters. And it's deliberate. Yeah, it was very interesting. It was about, it was 83 or so. I was reading some political commentary. Of course, this was way before the internet. It was in some paper or other. I think it was the New York Review of Books. I can't remember rightly. Or maybe it was The Economist or one of these. I was reading The Economist in those days. But anyway, he said this man was the Secretary of Agriculture. His name was Old Butts in the Reagan administration. And he said the American people will always be meat and potato eaters. And I said to myself, I don't think so. But I've lately come to realize that he knew, he said that because he knew, being Secretary of Agriculture, that the meat industry is subsidized to the extent that it's very cheap and convenient to go and get your burger and your French fries and your soft drink. But the costs are enormous. See, because as you know, in the accounting ledger of looking at all this, yeah, you may pay very cheaply for your burger and your French fries and your soft drink. But the fact of the matter is, it costs you dear in the purse because of the medical consequences that arise. So if we look at that aspect of it, you know, you have to say, at least I do, that the policy of the United States federal government is to make people into meat and potato eaters so that they can be sick all the time and tired and have all these ailments, you know, because the medical system has no idea, at least not ostensibly. I mean, behind the scenes they do. The medical system does know what I'm telling you because the research has been done. See, when I first started doing this back in '75, you know, if you said out loud that food had everything to do with your health and well-being, you were a complete kook. I mean, you were just a radical sort of, you know, left-wing drug-dealing hippie. You know, you were really considered a total crank if you said that. However, things change. And I can remember seeing a news item on CBS News back in, you know, like, I don't know when it was probably 83, 84. And somebody was interviewing the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, or the NIH, or some high up in the ranks of the bureaucracy of the health care, or should I say sick care system in this country. And he was asked, did he think any food had anything to do with the problem of cancer and heart disease? And the guy just about fell off his chair laughing. He thought it was ridiculous. However, we fast forward to like 8, 9 years later, maybe it wasn't that far, maybe 5 years later. So it was another show, another interview with a person high up in the bureaucracy of sick care in the United States, and he was asked the same question. He said, yes, we think we have to look at this very seriously. And there's been a ton of research done into the relationship between dietary intake and health and well-being. And it's all basically corroborated what macrobiotics has already known. And I said that. I said that to a friend of mine in 1979. I said, sooner or later the medical people will come up and totally confirm what we know and have been saying for years, for decades. However, they're not promoting it, and for obvious reasons, because the sick care system is a for-profit system. It's like one of my clients said to me, he said, you know, cancer is not a disease, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And that's the case. Same goes for heart disease and AIDS and diabetes and all this stuff. I mean, if you looked at the track record of modern medical science, you wouldn't buy a used car from these people. I mean, what would you, I mean, come on. So we've got to extricate ourselves from this trap, you know, this albatross around the neck of the American people. You got to just get rid of it. And the way you do it is through the macrobiotic way of eating, and eating whole grains and vegetables, and learning how to cook, and studying. That's very important. So when we look at the economic aspect of it beyond the personal sphere, and we change our way of eating, you know, If the majority of this population of the United States changed its way of eating from that of eating meat and potatoes to eating whole grains and vegetables, 90% of the problems this country has experienced would disappear within 20 years. That would be the case. Because the economic consequences of eating meat and potatoes are enormous. I mean, what is the health care, or shall we say, the sick care bill of the United States? I think it's 17% of gross domestic product. So you work it out, 17% of 14 trillion. It's just lunatic. I mean, this is like total insanity. That meat and potatoes is actually being promoted as the way to eat. No, and I mean, when you look on TV, you don't see any ads for whole grains and vegetables, do you? No, you don't. All you see is ads for meat and potatoes. You know, and those ads are they're well done, I gotta say that. So, then we look at the resource problem that arises. Okay? Significant resource problems arise out of maintaining a meat and potato diet. When I use the word meat and potato, you know, it's in quotations. It covers all this garbage that people take into their bodies every day. We have a resource problem. Right now, and of course, you know, most people, of course what I'm saying is going to outrage and completely discombobulate a lot of people, because most people, even really intelligent in other respects, people think that going from a grain-based diet to a meat-based diet is an improvement in your diet. That is so far off the mark, it's not even